Hey everyone, my guest today is Quentin Plair. At the time of us recording this interview, Quentin can be seen in the Hulu Limited series Welcome to Chippendales. He has also starred in the Showtime series Good Lord Bird. He's been on Roswell, and he'll also star opposite Kathryn Hahn in the Hulu series The Beautiful Things, based on author Cheryl Strayed best-selling novel and produced by Reese Witherspoon. You've been in my living room with me the last couple of weeks
Oh,
watching you
really?
on Welcome to Chippendale. So thank
Okay.
you. It's so great to see you right now. The last episode I watched of Welcome to Chippendales was really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because Otis, this character that you play and have inhabited with so much truth and
Mm.
warmth and empathy and beauty and
Thank you.
physical manifestation of what a Chippendales dancer would look like in the 80s, has really become like a fan favorite and just such a I don't know, a centerpiece of this show that's
Yeah.
complicated and funny and all the things. So I want to get into Welcome to Chippendales, but before we get to Otis, can we
Okay.
go back a little bit in the life of Quentin Plair? Sort of, when did the arts come into your life? When did you know you wanted to be an artist? Can you just share a little bit about growing up and what your dream was and how this all happened?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see. So I was an athlete kind of growing up. That was, more so what I did all the time, but I always loved movies. So me and this was before smartphones were really a thing and before even the internet was like widely available. Me and my sister, we had all the channels growing up. So I would literally we just pick it out in the summers, like, okay, we're gonna watch this movie from whatever time to whatever time, and then click over to this movie on this network, and then this movie on this network. And the way that we did it, we just read the movie title and they had like a very brief description on basically your TV guide
Right,
channel, right?
right.
And we would just watch so many movies and not really know much about them, and I just loved them. I just came to love the medium of TV film. I really think some of my closer familiar memories really come from watching things together, and I just knew at a pretty young age that I wanted to be that for other families, like that connective bonding type of thing. So yeah, I kind of planned initially I wanted to go to the NFL, and then once I retired, get into acting. Found out, very quickly I was not good enough for the NFL. And yeah, and just as soon as I graduated college, I got my first agent, and then started the Southeast driving all over the place for auditions, and I guess now what is it? Um, about a decade later, here. So.
Okay, so a couple of questions. Number
Mhm.
one, the room you're watching these movies in, where did you grow up? Like,
Okay.
where
Oh
are you
yeah. So
from?
I grew up in Lawrenceville, Georgia. It's like little, not a little, but it was just this great county called Gwinnett. Like literally growing up, my county had the #1 park system in the entire United States rated. So it was just
Oh,
like a
wow.
great place to grow up. Your typical, I don't know, two kids and a white picket fence type of all American. Um, Place to grow up. Like I said, Georgia, it's basically outside of Atlanta, like 30 to 45 minutes outside of Atlanta. And yeah, just like this nice, neighborhood. I knew a whole bunch of the kids in the neighborhood, played basketball outside all the time. Rode my bike around the neighborhood and stuff like that. It was just a really great place. Had a pretty big yard, a great place to grow up.
And is your sister older or younger than you?
She is younger than me. Alexis is
Okay, so she's
much
your,
more mature, but she is younger.
but
Yeah.
chronologically
Yeah,
came
exactly. I
after you.
did reach Earth first,
Yes,
although you
and
can't tell.
okay, well, we'll phone a friend later and have her weigh in on what kind of big brother you were.
Yeah.
But what are some, when you think back to those movies, were there any that you like watched over and over again? Like, what were your favorite movies growing up?
1,000,000%. Okay, so like both Sister Act 1 and 2 are the type of movies that if it is on, no matter what point it is on, we as a family, at least me, my mom, and Alexis, I don't know too much about my dad, but we'll watch from then until the end of the movie. Like, just love that movie. Major Pain is another one like that. And actually, well, little known facts, my monologue that got me my first agent was actually from Major Pain. Um, and let's see, I mean, there was other ones that I loved, like Waterboy was one that I loved. I loved Titanic. It was my favorite movie for a long time. Um, and this one's a bit later, but the performance that I think might be the best performance I've personally ever seen was Heath Ledger in The Joker. Or I'm sorry, Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight as the Joker. But yeah, I mean, just so many. And I think the real thing is that we watched so many. So I just had this like wide knowledge of movies in general, and I still kind of keep that, like, pretty much almost. It's hard now with everything streaming, but like most things that come out I will see or have seen.
So when you're obviously playing football and being a jock, in certain high school, there are these lanes. I mean, if you look at like High
Yeah.
School Musical, right? Like you can
Hmm.
only play basketball or be in the musical and you
Yeah.
can't do both. Was there any crossover for you in your life when you were in high school? Did you do a play? Did you do a musical, or did this all happen later?
I didn't. My high school was very, like, kind of interesting. So like while I did play sports, being in the South, being at a you know, pretty much predominantly white school in the South, white Christian school as well. Um, I wasn't the most popular or anything. Like, I wouldn't fall in the traditional jock category. Um, but also, I felt like the drama club in that sector was also very niche, and so didn't fit in there either. I remember me and my best friend, who also played football with me, would go to drama club and also chess club. And when we were in the drama club, I remember us like sitting in the back, kind of like no one really talking to us, no one really, like, kind of being like, why, what are you doing here? You're football players. Um, so I didn't really feel that accepted by that community. And that, along with, just being young, not fully knowing myself, kind of being nervous in a lot of ways. I didn't pursue it the way I wanted to, and didn't pursue it the way I knew I loved it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so for me, it once I got to college, I did find this like really great group of people in my major, which was communications performance studies. And it was this great group of people that really taught me so much about the world just in general. And that was really my first time on a stage. And the stuff that we did, it was like, activism type of plays that we wrote ourselves, that was much more metaphorical. Didn't necessarily have They did have some lines, but not lines in the way that you would do a Broadway play or a Shakespeare or anything like that. It was much more like with the body and movement and stuff like that. And I feel like it just gave me such a different view into performing, a very different first introduction into performing, especially, coming from an athlete background. This was a completely different world. So I think college is definitely the first time I really got on stage and did that. And then after college is when I actually really started training a good amount and doing the TV film route, and, really building, what it is I've come to start doing today.
Right. So did you go to college in Georgia?
No, I went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel
Okay.
Hill. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So different
yeah.
um than your high school experience in terms of just feeling welcome and that there was a place for you in that room and space being made for you.
For sure. And I think also a lot of it has to go on me, and the fact that, it just was older, more sure of myself, more understanding of what I really wanted, and more confident to actually pursue it.
Right.
I can't say that that group in high school wouldn't have accepted me if I hadn't have exerted myself more. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a
Yeah.
two-way street. Like, did they maybe not go out of their way to be like, oh, come in, try this, da, da, da. Yeah.
Right.
But also, did I make it very apparent that this is something I want to pursue? Also, no.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a mix of the two, like, just
Yeah,
coming, growing, knowing yourself and putting yourself out there, which, a lot of ways is what college is for.
exactly. Did you play sports in school?
Yeah, yeah. So I played football in high school for sure, and then I also played football in college. So
Okay,
primarily the reason I went to North Carolina was football.
that's incredible.
Yeah, it was
Um,
a good time.
yeah. So when you get out of school and decide in earnest that you are going to pursue the life of an actor, how did you even start? Like on day one, you get your diploma. Is your family excited about this? Are they worried about it? Sort of what was the collective thought process about
Yeah,
it?
no, my family has supported every single thing that both me and Alexis have ever wanted to do. And it's actually one of the reasons I'm so passionate about being a parent when that time comes, is because of how right I feel my parents did it. They, like, when I was young, I wanted to be in the NBA, and it wasn't ever, oh, you probably can't go to the NBA. That's hard. It's all right. Well, let's research how is the way to get there. When it sort of shifted to football, when it shifted to acting, it was always research, figure it out, how is it to get there. Even the times when I wanted to be a meteorologist or an astronaut, that was still the case. And so yeah, they were on board. They were very on board because they helped me in the beginning. I lived with my parents much longer than I should have after college pursuing it. And there was never any negative thing. If anything, they were pushing me just further, like, no, because I would kind of feel bad, like, oh, I'm college educated. I'm still in the house with my parents. And they're like,
Right.
well, look, you're going after this thing, just keep going.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, so I graduated from
So you
UNC.
graduated, you went back home to Georgia.
I did, but before that, there was this thing that I went, and I had done it, I think 3 times, a showcase called Pro Scout.
Okay.
And it was a showcase, and I know it was in the Southeast. I think it was kind of all over. I don't know if it still exists, but where agents would come, and if you were just, anybody who was interested in either modeling and or acting, you would just go walk a runway, like, maybe 40 agents from wherever you were around would show up, and they had an acting division where you go on, you do a monologue, and that's where I did this monologue. And I had done it once in high school, didn't get any interest. Again, I think in the beginning of college, I got somebody interested, but it kind of fizzled out. And then this was my last time at it, and it cost to go. So I was like, all right, I've done this, I've gone to school, like, let's do this one last time. And it was kind of like my one last time, let's see if this acting thing is going to work out. And I went, found an agent who was out of Nashville, and then me and her just started going after it. And I started driving between my place in Atlanta and Nashville and New Orleans and all these places for auditions, and just slowly started building traction.
So what was your first professional job?
Think it was this it was actually while I was in North Carolina. It was this this movie called Trinity Goodheart. That's what the name of it, Trinity Goodheart. It was this little girl, and I can't even remember the plot of the movie, but I do know that I was this bully to this little girl, and me and this other guy who were both college age, and this little girl, she's like 10, and she ends up beating us up and like us running away scared. And I'm like a college football player. This 10-year-old girl beats us up and runs away scared. And that was my one scene in the movie. And I remember being all excited and going to the premiere, and they cut my scene out of the movie. And I
And
was
they
just
hadn't
like,
told you first.
hadn't told me first. And actually, on that day, I remember I had found out that my girlfriend at the time had cheated on me. Yeah, yeah, had cheated on me. So I'm finding that out, driving back from North Carolina to Atlanta. And this is like right around when I graduated. So I'm like, all right, it's fine. The premiere was in South
Yeah.
Carolina I get to the premiere, I'm all sitting down, ready to, watch myself on screen,
You're like,
so
I'll
excited.
show her. I'll
Yeah,
show
exactly.
her.
Boom, cut out the movie. So then I get back in my car, finish the drive to Atlanta. One of the worst days. And so yeah, that was a tough one, but
Oh my God. Well, there have been many happier days since
many
then.
happier days since. Yeah.
I remember when Good Lord Bird came out,
Yeah.
and I had some other people from that show on the podcast, and
Oh
just
wow.
sort of, thinking about like sort of Ethan Hawke's place in that show,
Yeah.
and sort of starring in it, and kind of what it was in terms of creating ensemble. I thought that was an incredible series. I thought, it really was unlike anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I wonder if you can talk about, because then I think about Kumail, the show you're doing now, and sort of the
Mhm.
person producing it and starring in it, and the creator of the thing also being on set with you every day. And I wonder if there are similarities in terms of those two shows because of that, or no. And
Yeah.
obviously your part is so different in both these things.
Yeah. No, it is different, but I think looking at that, I think the thing is that when you're on sets like that, where number one is also a producer, they just care so much. In Ethan's case, he was also a writer on a lot of the episodes, and because of the way certain things worked out, he also de facto kind of took over some of the directing of some of the episodes, because he had a certain vision and it wasn't necessarily lining up with who we had on set at the time. And so with Ethan, and that was my first time being in that setting, I really just got to see that passion played out in the art we were doing. It was one of the first times where I really felt like I was participating in art, not just kind of crafting something for entertainment for people to watch. It really felt like there was an artistry in it, and I had some ownership of what I was doing. I remember on one of the days, which was, my biggest day, I went to him because I had seen him having these conversations with people before. I'd gone to him and been like, hey, I was wondering on this, this line, if I could do this different and say this different, and also if I could add this later. And these are lines he had actually wrote himself. And he was like, yeah, just try it in the rehearsal and we'll see how it goes. And so I tried it and everyone loved it. And I remember, just the way he came up to me after we filmed that particular scene and just had so much positive to say and was just so giving of himself. And he really was just such a giving human being in general, and very much focused on his character, but just like they are for everybody else. And now fast forward to this, and Kumail has just been, I mean, he has been one of the warmest people I've just ever met in general, especially from a person that you would consider to be your boss, and just made the set one of the closest sets that I've ever been a part of. And I've been pretty lucky. Like, I haven't had a whole bunch of problems on set, or at least I haven't felt them. Like I said, the Good Lord Bird was a very close set. I still have friends from that still. And then, but this particular Welcome to Chippendale set, I think, was even further than that, and how close everybody was. And yeah, and he, a funny thing, like, there's this movie from my childhood that me and my sister loved called Rock-a-Doodle, and it was a animated movie that very few people have seen. And it's just this incredible animated movie. Just love it. These animals that are on a farm. There's this the Chanticleer, he sings, brings up the sun, but he wants to go chase his journey. So he goes to the city and becomes like basically like an Elvis figure, and they have to go get him back because the sun doesn't rise on the farm anymore, right? And so that's kind of the basis of a children's story. Incredible. So anyway, it comes up one day on set, and I'm just telling everybody about this movie. It's months before the wrap, right? And Kumail was listening, and so that's it. Happens one day, right? We get to the wrap of the of Welcome to Chippendales, and Kumail gives me this gift, and he's so excited. and he's like, oh, let me know when you open the gift. Let me know when you open the gift. And I open it, and it's an original poster of this Rockadoodle movie that like was on, in movie theaters, like at the actual theater where they have the poster up where, you go in and it's showing you what's playing. It's one of the original one of those. He said it's like one of 500. He remembered months later to get me this gift that meant so much to me. And it's huge, like a monstrous poster. And that just goes to show, kind of the person he was when my parents came to the premiere. He spent so much time with them, so giving. And I think when you have those kind of individuals at the lead of productions, it just trickles down. And I think one of the things that I've heard and I've always thought is that the way number one is the way the rest of the set is.
Yeah.
And so you kind of take your cue from the lead. And I think, when that person really cares about what they do, and both Kumail and Ethan are that way, it just kind of, everyone else kind of follows suit, and the people that they cast for a reason, because they are people who also care. And I think it just makes it, I don't know, it just makes it the comfortable kind of environment that you want to work in, where everybody involved really, like I said, really cares about what they do, not just the actors, but the set, the production, everything.
Right.
And it just, I don't know, it just makes it that much better to go to work. And yeah, it just, you
And
want to
do
do your
good
best
work.
work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do good work.
Had you seen The Big Sick?
I had, another crazy story. When I was moving to Los Angeles, I was meeting with managers. So this was actually in 2017, about in the summer of then, 6 months before I actually moved there. I'm getting there. I got there a little early. I had a meeting with a couple managers, one I eventually signed with. And I'm like, oh, I'm in Los Angeles. I finally make it here. I've wanted to move here since I graduated college. It's up on my little, my whatever board to get there. And I
Did you
see
have
this.
a vision board? Was
It,
that,
it,
do you work that way?
it
You,
was kind of a vision board, but it was literally like a piece of paper where I wrote my goals and the time period that I wanted those goals in. And I just, stuck it on my little childhood room desk. So I saw it every day. I didn't like actually look at it every day, but it was just in my view every day before I
yeah.
left.
Yeah.
And I went and I looked back, and I had knocked out every one on the short-term goals. And I didn't get them in the amount of time, but I had knocked them all
Right.
out.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so I'm in Los Angeles, somewhere I had wanted to be, wanted to move to. And I'm just like, oh, there's this like kind of artsy theater. And I'm like, oh, I got some time. I'm gonna go watch a movie. And the first movie I ever watched in Los Angeles was The Big Sick. And and I loved it. Loved it. It's just an incredible movie. And so I actually told that story when we were at the one of the panels we did for the first uh for Welcome to Chippendales, the first couple of episodes. And it was like, yeah, one of those was like, oh wow, when I first got here, I was watching
Yeah.
this man on screen, and obviously I've seen Silicon Valley, and now working with him, and I think can call him a real friend, not just an
Yeah.
industry friend.
Is Emily his wife? I know they write a lot together, produce
Yes.
together. Is
Hmm.
she involved in the show as well?
Yeah, she was a producer as well. And actually I remember on one of the days, she was kind of, we had a very improvisational type of set, but on one of the days she had fed a few lines from my character to kind of try and stuff like that. So yeah, she was there on the days, met her a few times. She's great. She's really great.
So she was on set as well.
Yeah, and Video Village, because COVID makes it a little bit different on who could be on set and not, but yeah.
Right. So that's what I wanted to ask. So you were shooting this during COVID filming protocols.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So first of all, you are in a show. I mean, I feel like for the one person who doesn't know, Welcome to Chippendales is about a male strip club that became very popular in the United States in the 80s. It started on the West Coast. They're everywhere. It sort of created the bachelorette party excursion. And this is sort of a fictionalized history of the show. And
Yes.
also there were a lot of murders that happened around founders and other people involved in the Chippendales organization.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of comedy, true crime, drama. I mean, it's all the things. loosely based in reality,
Yeah.
with some fictionalized dancers, but making up the ensemble of male strippers is
Yes.
Quentin Plair playing Otis. Just for
Yes.
anyone who has
Yeah,
not
just a
yet
quick
seen the
rundown.
show, sorry. And also, this show will live forever, and it won't be on Hulu the day they listen to this, because it may be 4 years from now that they're capturing it. So the person that I'm talking to, Quentin, today, is one of these strippers. And in researching you, I knew you were a football player, and it
Yeah.
also was out in the world that you had not been a dancer. And I
Yeah.
find that astonishing, because when you watch this, that you had never been a stripper or a
Yeah.
dancer
No.
of any kind, is really incredible. So I think about what it's been for me as a performer, to be in really vulnerable situations where
Yeah.
no matter how great you feel about your body, it is a very different thing, to choose, how to expose yourself and for whom you want to expose yourself, and suddenly to be on a set.
Yeah.
And I'm picturing you guys in masks and nudity, like the whole COVID part of it also must have been like your G-strings and masks were probably the same size.
Yeah.
Maybe the mask was bigger. Um, can you talk about the process of getting this job,
Mhm.
and yeah, like how did you get this job? What
Yeah.
did you have
Yeah.
to go through as a non-dancer
Yeah.
to get the role of a dancer?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like the actual audition process was just like any other audition process. There wasn't a dance component to it. We talked about it, and I had
So it was
had
just scene work. It was
it
just
was
reading
just scenes. Yeah,
sides.
it was just scenes.
Okay.
They didn't see me dance until I was actually casted. And we talked about it in the audition process, and I think my understanding at the time of what Chippendales dancers was, I wasn't as aware of how, skilled these guys are.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to be kind of like some, almost
Campy a
posing.
little
So
bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of how the
Yeah.
first group of dancers was that Nick has.
And are these self-tapes, or because of COVID, are you
Yes.
auditioning via self-tape?
Yeah, everything has been self-tapes. I mean, like I've gotten uh obviously Welcome to Chippendales and then Tiny Beautiful Things. And now, I recently just got something else. And all of it has been self-tape, hasn't been in the room. Even when, I'm going to be Kathryn Hahn's husband, our chemistry read was, just like this over Zoom. So
Well,
it's
wait, let me
definitely interesting.
just ask you something, because the
Mhm.
self-tape has become the bane of all actors' existence for the past couple of years. Some
Uh,
people love it because they feel they can control it, and some people
yes.
feel like I don't want to control it. I don't want to be a lighting director or sound director. Like, and you are really successful at it. You were, by the way, I called it The Beautiful Things during the
Yeah, yeah,
bio
yeah.
read earlier.
Yeah.
Apologies. I've read the
No
book. I
worries.
saw the play. I don't even know
Yeah.
why that happened. But um, do you have a understanding of what it is you are doing in your self tapes? Like, maybe you don't want to give the secret away, but what is the secret? There's some
Yeah.
secret
No.
sauce in here.
Yeah. I always think there's ample opportunity and space for everybody. So any secret I
Okay.
get, I always tell anyone. Anything I have, I won't
All
call it a
right.
secret.
Share the
My thing, yeah,
secret.
the reason that I have loved this particular I don't know, this particular time as far as self-tapes versus in person is a thing that self-tapes did for me was make me the aficionado or the most knowledgeable person in the room about what I am doing. And so just that little bit of mental shift of, when you're going into a casting director, or at least the way I used to be, it's like they're the person who knows the most about the project. So they're like, oh, do you have any questions? It just kind of puts me in a lesser point from right there because someone in this room knows more. When I'm going to a self-tape, and I usually go to places to have them tape me or whatever, I'm the person who knows the most about this. And so I'm setting it up. I'm doing everything I want to, no questions asked, because there's no one to ask any questions. And I think that level of confidence has shown through in the tapes. Cause like, I'll have an audition for something And like, if I want to be seated on the ground, and I remember I had an audition for this Emancipation movie that just came out with Will Smith. I was, I had put dirt all on my shirts, cut holes in it on my tank top. I had, bought some rope and really tied myself up. And I was, had done all this running. So I was sweating and all this kind of stuff. And I'm, laying on the floor. And I don't think I could really do that. Or even if I had gone to do all that, I would have felt nervous about doing that if I had gone into somebody else's room, and that little bit of nerves would have shown
Right.
through on my
Right.
tape, and so it's little things like that where um you dictate everything. And also I dictate when I want the audition to be. Sometimes people call you and it's an early time, and me personally, like, I don't operate my best early in the morning.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that where, because I dictate everything around it and I control all the variables, I know where I'm going to audition. I know exactly how much time it takes there. I know, you know, get there, and it's the people that I work with. I know how they work, just a level of comfortability. Um, and so for me, it's just made the audition process so much easier from a stress anxiety point, and put me in the seat of the confident one, that I've just seen that it's been very beneficial, for me personally.
And you don't do it at home. You go to a place. You don't do self-tape in your own
No,
home.
I mean, I could, I just find it easier. And, I found a few places that are kind of my go-tos that are very cheap, and it just
Yeah,
makes more
it
sense
works.
to just go to them, who, I have good relationships with these people. They work with me, they understand me. It just has worked. It's just kind of like a nice friendship, and not like, hey, can you come, take me. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it
yeah.
just makes it that much easier.
And do they light it? Is there a whole,
Yeah, yeah, it's
yeah,
it's a
so
whole
it
setup, and
looks
it looks
good
great.
too.
Like, it
Yeah,
looks great. So
yeah.
yeah.
All right. So sorry for that, but I just
No,
feel
no,
like
no.
everyone's having that conversation. And I thought like, okay, this is someone who it's been I mean, every project you're doing is like the creme de la creme
It's been a great run.
of
So
television right now.
mm.
And I know film is coming.
Yeah, I hope so.
So when you think about kind of, you do the self-tape, they don't know anything about what Quentin will look like moving in the show. You
Yeah,
get cast. Are
yeah.
you ever reading with Kumail? Like, is it all just you self-tape, or does it ever turn into
So this
other
this
people?
particular one was just me. Kumail, I hadn't met him throughout the audition process. Now I know he had a hand in who was casting. He looked at, tapes and stuff like that. But yeah, this process, it was me, Rob, Jenny was on it, the casting director, David Rubin, he's a great reader. He actually casted Tiny Beautiful Things as well. Um, and then the director, who was the director at the time, later Matt Shackman became the director. But yeah, it was just them, and it was a lot of the thing that I loved about them. It was a lot of talking through it. We were really. It almost felt like, especially on the second callback that we had, it felt more like we were finding the character together and talking about things that he would have, and his backstory and stuff like that. It felt a lot more like that than a audition per se. It wasn't like, oh, go perform now and I hope they like me. Like, it was really talking through what it was going to be. And I just felt more like I was already casted, like I was already working things out with this people. And I think that even more allowed me to take chances and try things, because it wasn't like I was trying to please someone. Yeah.
But that you're really collaborating the way you
Yeah,
would when
exactly.
you're on set making
For sure.
something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the most talented people make the audition process the most collaborative and respectful. Like, there's something about allowing you to feel everything you're talking about, which is ownership.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
maybe, and at the time you're like, I don't know, they might be doing this with 4 other guys. Like, who
Yeah, for
knows?
sure,
But who
for sure.
cares?
But
But in my time, in my moment, I feel like I got
exactly.
the part. And in
Exactly, in
this
your
case,
time, and it is your
yeah,
time, and they're not rushing your time. Like,
yeah.
yeah, you just feel like you can take it, do what you need to. Yeah, it's really,
So
it's just
how
a
did you
different feeling.
handle this sort of, I mean, you're not nude, but you really are
Yeah,
exposed in so many ways. How did you make peace with that, or maybe it wasn't complicated for you. Maybe you're not shy. I mean, I have no idea, but even the
Yeah.
least shy people, it's very different when you're doing it for that many people.
For sure. I am a shy individual for the most part. But it wasn't it wasn't this big thing to, the body portion of it. The more for me was I just wanted to be good at well, all of it, the acting and everything, but I wanted to be good at the dancing part. I didn't want to look um not confident. I didn't want to look stiff. I didn't want to look like, why did they cast this guy? I wanted it to just all work. And then I think the great thing about Otis is that there's so much going on the times that he's dancing, whether it's, oh, I finally have a job and I've been struggling all this time, and this is something I can now pay my bills, or whether it's, okay, I've been at this a few years and now I'm being overlooked, and I'm being, caged, and I can't move forward. Oh, and also I'm kind of being exploited, and we're doing very, very stereotypical, almost like blackface type performances. And so there was just so much going on. And that's really what excited me, to be able to do this thing that's just so much of your body, and so much exertion and all this, but then have all this inner turmoil going on. It was just a real challenge. Um, but I was very nervous, the first day, and it was primarily about the dancing. It wasn't even the stripping. I was nervous in the rehearsals when I wasn't even taking clothes off. But man, the crowd, like the background, was so giving, and so, pumped me up so much that I actually came to love those days. And I really was like looking forward to the dancing days. It was just a different level of energy, a different level of performative energy that I hadn't really experienced on set ever before. It was such an incredible experience, just like out of the act, like as me as an individual, to be on stage for that many people yelling and screaming in this kind of set. It was really just a beautiful, palpable thing.
And are you testing like every day? Are you doing COVID testing? And is
Yeah,
the
I mean,
background was it endless, the testing going on?
yeah,
And
we tested 3 days a week, and like double rapid and double tested on days where, like for people like me, we're getting touched, and I think they call it intimacy days or whatever,
yeah,
like that. Yeah, we had
yeah.
a lot of testing.
And was the cast and crew sort of all, where did you shoot Welcome to Chippendales?
It was in Los Angeles. It was a little bit outside of Los Angeles. I can't remember the name of the place, like 20 minutes north of North Hollywood.
So could you live at home while you were shooting?
Yeah, I was living at my I had just moved back to Los Angeles,
Okay.
'cause I worked all of 2021 in New Mexico. But yeah, I was living uh in just my apartment for both Welcome to Chippendales and Tiny Beautiful Things.
Okay. So that's already in the can as well. Tiny Beautiful
Yeah,
Things.
yeah. That I literally, like, it was close because my last day of Chippendales was the first day for Tiny Beautiful Things. So I went straight from Chippendales to Tiny Beautiful Things. And it was actually close on whether or not I was going to be able to do it availability wise. I'm glad that it worked out. Luckily, it was Hulu to Hulu, and
Yeah.
they worked it out. But if it had been another network, I don't know. I may not have
No,
been
but
able
that's
to.
amazing. There were really, your character is really struggling to make choices based on everything you just said. Like you went from surviving, like this is a survival job.
Yeah.
Otis goes from survival job to like star of this
Yeah.
thing.
Hmm.
And then just this tremendous slap in the face of
Yeah.
realizing that even here, even in my home, even when I'm the star of the thing, there's still fear about what outside of this place people will respond to, right? Like there's a whole
Exactly.
calendar. I don't want to, spoil the episode for people
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
haven't seen it yet, but there's just this moment where like, even in my own home, even with a person of color who is my boss,
Yeah.
I'm still dealing with, uh, were those scenes sort of, did you feel protected by your producers, by your director, in terms of
Oh,
like, this is
one
painful, this is awful, how
one
are we going to make you
100%.
feel okay?
Yeah, 100%. Like they couldn't have been better about that, especially, Kumail. Like he was he was so, about that, like feeling comfortable and make sure everyone felt comfortable, especially in these, racial situations and stuff like that. And me, I'm one who's drawn to work of that nature. Obviously the Good Lord Bird was that, and I was very
Totally.
excited to do that. My work on the Quad was about a historically Black, college being gobbled up by a predominantly white university. Like I love stuff that deals with that. So that's not something that I personally I haven't felt I'm sorry, I have always felt safe portraying that on
Right.
screen because it is
Right. And
a
wanting to
true,
tell that story.
exactly, it's
Yeah.
true history. And so while it is touchy, I think it is important to tell that history, that is history for so many Americans, so many Americans on both sides, but especially Black Americans. And yeah, so I felt very supportive with that. And I think the thing for me, knowing how big the actual Chippendales calendars got, like they were huge when they came out, and the guys who were on them and in them became big stars, like, like real stars. I think it just made it that much bigger for me, knowing, what this could have meant if I was in these calendars and what I was being held back from by not being in them. I think it just made it paramount, and just put so much more underneath it. It wasn't like you're just some local calendar that's a few people are going to buy at the gift shop. Like this thing was truly global, and potentially international. I'm not exactly sure, but it was definitely national. Yeah.
I felt like there was a way in which you kind of, I don't know what your decision had been. And I don't know if they tried it lots of different ways. And then this was the editor and director's choice ultimately, if which version of your
Mhm.
reaction they were going to choose. But there is this like gentle, Otis is such a gentle being. And there
Mhm.
was a way in which you kind of kept this like lid on the pot of feelings, that I just thought was really extraordinary.
Oh,
There was such
thank you.
an, he's so elegant, like you're such a class act. And even when you sort of know how wrong this thing is, there was just a way, whatever choice that was. And as I said, I know editing like determines what
Uh,
our performance is. So maybe
yeah,
you
yeah,
actually, punched him in the face and then
yeah,
walked
exactly.
out. Like, but there was a choice made to kind of keep it there was something tremendously compelling
Yeah,
about the reaction being the opposite of what we would expect in that
yeah,
moment.
yeah. Oh, and that was something that both me and Kumala talked about, because you don't get to see it play out as much, on screen, but
Yeah,
backstories wise, these two became like so close, the best of friends,
right.
like they truly loved each other. And I think the thing that we wanted to try to portray in this scene was that love, so it wasn't like just, oh, my boss is an a-hole, I hate him, I'm just going to explode on him and go.
Yeah,
It was the type of thing that it was like truly painful to Otis, as Otis, to leave, because it was like one of those things that, in order for me to be who I see myself as, which is an ambitious person that is, made for more, I have to leave this place. Not
yeah,
necessarily I want to, but I cannot be here. I have to leave this place, and I have to leave my friend.
yeah,
And I think, as painful as there was a sense of understanding, between the two, and almost understanding. And I actually heard Robin, who plays Ray Colon, say this in one of the interviews we did. It's that, like, that even not being a white male, a white patriarch, that system that is set up still is still in place. And so the fact that Steve saw success through all these people he idolized, like Hugh Hefner, he saw that's how they did it. And, in one of the episode, fourth episode, where he goes to the restaurant, the establishment, and gets turned away at the members only, and then turns around and makes that, his process. It's because in his mind, these places, even when they're discriminating against him, he sees that and is forced to see that,
That's
as
how business
success.
works, right?
Yeah, it's like that's what's
Right.
programmed into him, because that's what's programmed into society. So I think in a way, even though it's intolerable and it's not okay, and Otis has to leave that situation in order to grow, he kind of in a way understands his friend is, and even though he's frustrated and upset, it's like those two things competing, and it's just like I just have to I have to leave, and it's painful to leave. And I do actually appreciate the advice and the things that you taught me, and I will take that into my future life, but like I've got to go. And
Do we get to
yeah.
know what Otis's future life is, or is it?
In the show, no, we don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would have been nice to go into some of those things, but
yeah,
when you're telling a show like that and it's over decades, there's only so much you can
yeah,
show, especially it's
yeah.
a limited series. So yeah, we don't get to revisit Otis, but I knew what his future was going to be, so I kind of got to have all that inside of me, despite not
Sure.
being able to put it on screen.
Tell us a little bit about Tiny Beautiful Things, how the book has turned into a filmed series,
Yeah.
how has the story been adapted?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Tiny Beautiful Things, as it is, it's Cheryl Strayed's the advice column that she did, Dear Sugar, the anonymous advice column that she had in New York, I believe. Um, that is, people writing in looking for advice, her also sharing so much of herself and her own truths while giving that advice. The way that it's adapted, it's kind of taking a look at, and I think it's a fictionalized look, but a look at what an individual going through, you know, that moment in their life, as in kind of in being Cheryl Strayed, a moment where a struggling writer, a person who's just kind of honestly struggling in a lot of places in life, has this thing that is really starting to get traction, and she's helping other people. So it's really like a kind of behind the scenes look at the beginnings of an individual played by Kathryn, starting this advice column and starting to have success and starting to kind of find herself again and find her voice, through this medium of writing that she's always been great at. Um, but also what is going on in her personal life, what her backstory is fueling in the advice that she is giving to all these people that are benefiting from it. And so, yeah, it's a very grounded, very real, deals with what I think are just like kind of real life issues, and not big over dramatized issues. I think sometimes one of the kind of I don't know if it was like a epiphany, but one of the things that really struck me as I was filming this just came to me. It was like, sometimes it is just hard getting through the day. You know what I mean? And it kind of feels like this show speaks to that in a sense, just like kind of sometimes it's just tough to get through the day, and it just goes through some of those subtle, beautiful things, that really just are truths of life.
Well, how thrilling to get to know that we're going to see you do yet another really
Yeah.
compelling character.
Yeah, I think so.
Quentin, what an exciting time for us to get to watch you and for you to be you and
Yeah.
check off all the things on that little piece of paper on your childhood
Yes.
desk. How incredible. What a thrill to get to talk to you today. You're just
Oh,
the
really?
most beautiful actor. Thank you for your work and
Thank you so much.
the integrity with which you fulfill all of these characters. It's just astonishing. And before I let you go, is there a little known fact that you can share?
Yes. Okay. So, a little known fact, and it's known much more by my family, but um, as a kid growing up, and still kind of to this day, the way that I wanted to die was inside of a tornado. And the reasoning why, my two favorite phenomena are black holes and tornadoes. I just love them. And like the nearest black hole you just can't get to. You know what I mean? And so I would love to see what an event horizon looks like and what it looks like to go inside and essentially if theory is correct exist forever because it just you just get your all the anyway all that stuff about black holes. But I really am so intrigued on what is inside of a tornado. So like you see Twister, which once to our earlier conversation, one of my favorite movies growing up. You see Twister, they strap themselves in, there's a lightning bolt in the side and everything's twirling around. And so knowing that that's a movie, probably the only way you can see what's inside of a tornado, you're probably going to die, you're probably not going to make it out. And so yeah, like it just if when I'm like 80, 85, 90, 95, whatever, something like that, if that was the way I had to go and I got to see what was on the inside of a tornado, I wouldn't be too upset. I'm sure it would be extremely painful death, but but
It's
yeah,
such a
that's a
it's
little
such a
known fact.
meta bucket list moment, right?
I know,
Like
right? Right.
it's
The
like
bucket
the
list is
thing
now done,
how you
but
die. My bucket list is how one day. Well, I mean, speaking to both films you loved as a kid, I just heard that they may be, they're constantly thinking about a Sister Act 3. So
yeah,
there
I've
may
heard
be
about that.
space for you in that. And
Hey,
they're
maybe.
looking at another Twister movie. So
Really?
I am not your manager, but if I were, I'd be making a call right now. And I'm
I know.
sure
I
your
love
manager will listen to this and things are
I'm
going to
sure.
happen. And you don't even have to do 10% for me, like 1% is all I would charge if you get cast in either of those films. Okay.
All right. All right.
Fair
Good to
enough.
know.
Quentin, have the greatest day. Thank
Yes,
you
you too.
so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Oh my God, me too. All right. See you soon.
All right, see you soon. Bye.
Bye.